Hi, it's Willow here, and I am here to talk about a very heavy, very dank, very dark, and very depressing subject right now. Yay! Woohoo! And that is fluoride poisoning. Yeah, okay, well, I really, at this point, wish I did not have to even raise this as an issue, but we are in some highly diluted times, friends, where people are being taught that fluoride is healthy for us. Fluoride is safe to ingest on a daily basis. No, 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 no. Um, we've known fluoride is poisonous for decades and decades and decades and decades. As far back as the 1940s, there are studies showing the health effects, health damage caused by fluoride, which runs the gamut from increased incidence of cancer, arthritis, neurological damage, cognitive issues, gastrointestinal problems, lowered IQs in children, kidney dysfunction, thyroid dysfunction, endocrine disruption. I could go on and on. Basically everything caused by chemical toxicity. Okay, that's a huge problem right now, huge problem these days, as we're being exposed to layer after layer after layer after layer of toxic chemicals, and people's chemical load is becoming unbearable, intolerable for the body, and then that kicks up health problems. Okay, so chemical toxicity, and in particular fluoride toxicity, is something that we all need to be highly, highly aware of. But in the mainstream medical system and the governmental structures, that is not the case. Okay, we are being told, y'all, by dentists and doctors and government regulatory bodies, that fluoride is perfectly safe for anyone and everyone to ingest, including babies, children. And also that it is medically necessary, that we need to force everyone to ingest fluoride against their will in the water supply to harden their teeth. Okay, so this is just absolutely false, because there's really no concrete evidence showing that ingesting fluoride hardens your teeth. Okay, what has been shown is that topical use hardens your teeth, but people get enough fluoride through fluoridated toothpaste. Okay, so all you have to do, if you really want to harden your teeth with fluoride, knowing, yes, that it is a toxin, okay, is brush your teeth with fluoridated toothpaste. If you're worried, you want more fluoride than that, you can get mouth rinses, and you can rinse your mouth 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day if you want to, if you're really, really worried about your teeth not being hard enough. Okay, ingesting fluoride has no benefit. I'm just gonna straight up throw that out there. Okay, so the fact that I'm even talking about this in 2022 is mind-boggling. The fact that the poisonous effects of fluoride, which we've known about for, hell, going on 100 years now, 80 years now, right? The fact that this has not trickled down into our regulatory bodies, our official institutions, our official authority figures, the fact that they're bleeding out that fluoride is perfectly safe and medically necessary just shows how completely out of touch with reality, completely out of touch with the truth these people are, right? And anyone who is promoting fluoride from a position of power has basically just shown you that they are not your leader, that they do not hold any legitimate power over you. Okay, so the thing that I'm tying together here in this video is different sources of fluoride poisoning, and in particular through our water and through our pharmaceuticals. Okay, now I am an astrologer, and I have written a fairly extensive article on this topic on my blog, and I will put that link in. I won't focus on the astrology too much in this video, but the thing that I'm linking this to, as far as why is fluoride a big issue right now, okay, Jupiter is transiting Pisces right now, and Jupiter is like the cosmic spotlight. Jupiter makes everything it touches bigger, bolder, more of an issue. It illuminates things, right? It kind of, again, puts a spotlight on certain issues. Okay, so Pisces is a sign related to poisoning, okay? It's related to, in particular, invisible forms of poisoning. And it's also related to, in particular, to invisible forms of poisoning that are dissolved or widely dispersed through water. Okay, now, so that's one end of Jupiter and Pisces. What Jupiter and Pisces is illuminating is the water, right? The toxicity of the water and the way that we're being poisoned invisibly through fluoride being dispersed in our water. The other, another thing that Pisces and Neptune, Pisces ruling planet, relate to are pharmaceuticals, okay? Drugs. And that is another way that we are being poisoned, through fluorine-infused pharmaceuticals, okay? So I was poisoned and long-term debilitated by a fluorine-infused antibiotic called ciprofloxacin in 2009, in December 2009. And so for the past 12 plus years, I have been on a healing journey, self-healing journey, trying to reverse the ill effects of basically complete systemic poisoning by Cipro, okay? By a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Fluoroquinolone antibiotics are terribly dangerous, kids, and should only really be used in cases of life and death when all safer alternatives have failed. They are not being used in that way. In fact, they are being erroneously prescribed every single day for minor infections, uncomplicated infections, and as first-line antibiotics. So the first drug a doctor will prescribe you, the first drug a pharmacist will dispense to you is a fluoroquinolone for even minor infections, minor issues. And this is, at this point, is criminal. Okay, this is criminal behavior. I'm not scared to say it. I'm not scared to say it. Now, if these people are acting in ignorance, okay, that can be forgiven if they change their ways immediately and start speaking out, start warning people about these things, right? If they continue on with what they're doing, they're just barreling forward with criminal negligence, criminal medical assault, basically, and medical murder through the prescription of these drugs, okay? Yep, just gonna lay it out there, guys. You should know, if you're a regular watcher of this video, of this channel, you will know I'm a straight talker. What do I have to lose? They already poisoned the crap out of me, so hey, might as well just tell the truth about it. Okay, so the reason that this is coming up right now is that, oh my God, and I can't even believe this. I just relocated to a new city. Okay, it's a city that I went to, where I went to university. Regina, Saskatchewan. Okay, I'm just gonna out it because this is too important to gloss over. Okay, I just relocated to Regina, Saskatchewan, and 10 out of 11 Regina City Councilors voted in August 2021 to add fluoride to the water here. Yep. Near simultaneously in Calgary, Alberta, neighboring city, neighboring province, 13 out of 15 city councilors in that city voted to add fluoride to the water. Okay, so in Regina, they actually said that they are gunning for 2025 is our first year with fluoridated water. In Calgary, I think it's even sooner than that. It might even be next year, 2023. So time is of the essence to get these horrifically wrong-headed decisions reversed and to keep this poison out of the water supply, okay? Okay, so basically, mind-boggling times. I was naively under the impression that pretty much everyone at this point understood that you couldn't force fluoride into the water, that adding a known toxin and neurotoxin in particular into the water and forcing everyone to ingest it against their will was not a great idea, not good leadership, not good governance. Again, this just shows the level of out of touchness of our so-called leaders. Okay, these people have no authority over me. They have no authority over any, frankly, informed and aware person. They've just proven that with this vote. Okay, so the timing of these votes, the timing of these fluoride votes, you have to you have to think is a little bit suspicious. Okay, so in the midst of what we're being told as a pandemic, again, jury's still out on whether that actually, that term is actually able to be used, or whether the conditions are fulfilled for pandemic. But anyway, okay, during a pandemic, when the public is traumatized, distressed, distracted, when the public is being forcefully socially isolated and they're being entrained to fear human contact at all, okay, this is when they sneakily and snakily slide these votes by, right? When it's really impossible to form an effective opposition ahead of the votes, okay? Because people, as you might have remembered, we were dealing with the criminal mandates at that time, right? So people were being fired because they would not submit to the mRNA shots. People were being stopped from any type of interprovincial travel through airplane, train, I think even bus service, unless they had the mRNA shots. So basically the authoritarians were coming down hard on us in sort of like late summer and fall of 2021, right? So people were exhausted just trying to fend off these forceful injections and trying to navigate the insane Nazi level discrimination and hatred that was being shown against people who did not want to take the shots, or even people who did not want to wear masks or had medical exemptions for the masks. I will tell you that I will never be able to forget the level of hostility, criminal discrimination, and straight up Nazi tactics that I've seen in human society in the past 2 years since this went down. And in particular, of course, since the vax passes were put on, okay? So basically the idea is like, people were so strung out trying to fight these mandates, trying to fight this insanity going on. Of course, we had like the truckers convoy to Ottawa, which spurred truckers convoys all around the world. We have the freedom marches, the freedom movements. This is all ongoing, okay? But again, people didn't have the psychic or emotional bandwidth to fight frickin' fluoride in the water amidst all this other stuff that they had to fight, okay? Not least of which, again, is because people were being forcefully socially distanced, and people were like terrified of each other, okay, at this point, and still, like, some people still are. So Regina City Council slides this vote by 10-1, 10 councillors to 1. One councillor, Landon Mole, I believe his name was, thank you, had a wife who understood the dangers of fluoride and said, no, you're not going to be voting to force, toxic fluoride into the bodies of all Reginans. So thankfully, we had one out of the 11 members of Regina City Council who voted against, okay? But I'm just gonna throw this out there. There is no way on God's green earth that 90+% of Reginans think fluoride is a good idea on the water, but yet 90+% of the Regina City councilors voted yes on fluoride, okay? So right there, we just do not have representation. We do not have representation of reality. Okay, so August 2021, Regina snakily votes this in, right, as we're all being mandated and terrified and our lives are being made hell, right? Okay, November 2021, same thing happens in Calgary. Okay, so literally, a matter of months later, same things going on. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, number one, is this timing a coincidence? Well, I'm not a coincidence theorist. There are a lot of coincidence theorists out there, but I'm not a coincidence theorist. So I definitely smell outside influence here, okay? We all know that the alphabet agencies, the global government is a big fan of fluoridation, right? George Soros's Open Society Foundation has openly said that they want fluoridation of school children's water. Now that has been scrubbed from the site. That article or information has now been scrubbed from George Soros's site. but we have a blog post, I believe, or a website post with screenshots from that. So basically, because they know the public is on to them, they will hide their pro-fluoride stances. But the alphabet agencies are all pro-fluoride. So of course that's the UN, the WHO, the WEF, the CDC, the on and on, right? The global government, the self-appointed global government is all pro-fluoride. And there's a number of different theories for why they are gunning so hard to fluoridate our water. But I think the fact that dozens of studies have shown lowered IQ in children, that might be a hot tip on some of the long-term potential for this. It's also been associated with infertility, fertility problems, and of course just a range of health problems. So docile people, sick people, are a lot more easily controlled. They don't put up as much of a fight because they're too exhausted and tired and sick and not feeling well to put up a fight, right? Okay, so again, there are a number of different theories, but if anyone's been paying attention, you know that the powers that be certainly don't give a rat's behind about our health and well-being. So there has to be an ulterior motive here. Okay, so back to the city councilors, which I believe have been influenced somehow by outside influence. You have to ask yourself, okay, so are these people just brainwashed and deluded? Are they really just clueless about the poisonous elements of fluoride, or are they straight up evil? Are they just following an evil agenda to control people and to poison people? Jury's still out on that one. I would say maybe we have a combination of the two, interwoven, kind of working together here. But long story short, these votes were slid by the people in the midst of this pandemic, COVID mayhem, the criminal mandates coming down on us. Again, people were not able to organize. People didn't have the mental or psychic bandwidth to even just deal with this issue. Both of these votes were slid by despite decades and decades and decades of opposition to fluoridation in both of those cities. Okay, so from longtime residents, I have heard that Reginans have voted no on fluoride 4 times in the past. Okay, so Reginans have resoundingly voted no on fluoride 4 times in the past, but now Regina City Council has taken it upon itself to push this through. Calgary also has had decades and decades and decades of opposition to fluoridation. Unfortunately, they did have fluoride in the water in 2011. Public pressure finally got them to take the fluoride out of the water. So from 2011 up to present day, they have not had fluoridated water. Now they're planning on slapping it back into the water. Okay, so the thing is that fluoride, we know fluoride is a toxin. Fluoride is actually an industrial waste product, and it is poisonous. It's poisonous to the point where they have to dispose of it in toxic waste facilities unless it is being disposed of in our water supply, that is, right? So that pretty much kind of just sums it up. Fluoride has been used as pesticide to kill rats and mice. Yep. So I've just put together, true masterpiece, I think, this poster to be put up around town. And it says, if they told Regina City Council that putting rat poison in the water was good for our teeth, would they be pro-rat poison too? Oh, wait, fluoride has been used as rat poison. I guess that answers the question. Tell Regina City Council that poisoning our water is a crime. No to fluoride in Regina. Okay, so they're literally telling us that putting a rat poison, putting a substance that's been used in rat poison into the water, putting an industrial waste product into the water that is so toxic it has to be disposed of in a special toxic waste facility. They're telling us that that's going to be perfectly safe, harmless. Yeah, harmless and medically necessary. It's so medically necessary for our teeth that they are willing to poison a portion of the population which I would suggest everyone. I would suggest fluoride is bad for everyone, but it's certainly going to be bad for anyone with certain health conditions. It's going to be bad for children and for fetuses, like fetal development. It's going to be horrific for anyone with any type of chemical sensitivities, digestion problems, absorption problems, all these types of things. Okay, so just horrifically bad news, horrifically bad decisions going on, and these decisions cannot stand. Okay, these decisions are evil. I'm just gonna say it. These decisions are evil. Putting fluoride in the water, knowing what we know about fluoride, knowing that it's going to harm people, is, and okay, this is the thing, right? This is why taking it to a vote really doesn't even matter. Poisoning the water is a crime. Poisoning one person is a crime, let alone thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people with the water, okay? So it doesn't matter if a majority of people thinks poisoning people is a good idea. It doesn't matter if the majority of, or even all of these city councils think that poisoning people is a good idea. It's still a crime, right? It's a crime, and it's never too late to stop a crime in progress, okay? Never too late. And so we absolutely need intense and ongoing resistance to this in both of these cities, okay? Okay, so this covers the fluoride in the water, the toxicity in the water. Now, I will also say that fluoride, once it's been added to the water, is very, very difficult to remove, okay? To remove entirely. Now, there are fluoride filters. I currently have fluoride filters. I currently use fluoride filters even before having fluoride added to the water, because there is naturally occurring fluoride. I use a Berkey water system with the black Berkey filters and then added fluoride filters, okay? But because fluoride is so difficult to remove from the water once it's been added, even those filters, even the best fluoride filters on the market, cannot guarantee 100% removal. Okay. The other way that we can absorb it is through showering and bathing, because the skin absorbs it readily. We can breathe it in through the water vapor, steam, that kind of thing. So, and as far as I've seen, the best fluoride filter on the market removes less than 50% of the fluoride that comes through the filter. Okay, so not good enough. Not good enough. That filter also only removes, I believe, 57% of chlorine. So if you switch to this fluoride filter, you're going to have less chlorine out of the water than, for example, a Berkey shower filter, which doesn't remove fluoride, but it removes 95% of chlorine. So you're basically trading one evil for another. The long story short is that once they put this into the water, once they're invisibly poisoning us, right? Jupiter in Pisces putting a cosmic spotlight on this issue. Once they're invisibly poisoning us through the water, it is impossible to completely escape fluoride. Okay, I'm just going to say that. And so this goes back to fluoroquinolone poisoning. Okay, another way we are poisoned insidiously by fluoride, and that people are usually unaware of, is through pharmaceuticals. Okay, so through fluorine-infused pharmaceuticals. Fluorine is like the root of fluoride. Okay, they're basically, almost chemically identical as far as like what the composition of them. Fluoride, I believe, has an extra electron added to it. Okay. So, but basically fluorine and fluoride are equally toxic, and as far as I know, or they're both toxic. I don't know if they're equally toxic, they are both toxic. And so anyone with chemical sensitivities and anyone who has been poisoned by a fluorine-infused pharmaceutical is 100% has to stay away from fluoride in the water. Like, it's just a no-brainer that you cannot ingest fluoride in the water, okay? Okay, so I'm living in this city where it is going to be impossible for me to completely escape fluoride. I may actually have to move out of this city, even though I just moved here. I may have to move out of this city within 3 years' time because I really don't know what the toxic level of fluoride will be. I know that even trace amounts of fluoride will be detrimental to me. So I don't know if I can even get the filtration to the point where I can function, where I'm not having constant symptoms, flares that are debilitating. I currently can't drink tap water without, the water doesn't have fluoride in it at this time, but I can't drink tap water without having symptoms flare, okay? Because there's so much chemical and pharmaceutical and all kinds of crap in the tap water as is, even before these crazy fools are putting, are putting fluoride in the water. It's beyond mind-boggling. Okay, so another way that we are insidiously and invisibly poisoned by fluorine, is in pharmaceuticals. And I've just written, like I said, a really long, in-depth article about this, and I wrote down the list of fluorine-infused pharmaceuticals. There's a website that has sort of compiled them, and I'm not sure if it's an exhaustive list, but it's hundreds of pharmaceuticals that contain fluorine. And of course, fluorine, so the reason that fluorine is put into these drugs, the reason that fluorine is put into fluoroquinolone drugs is to make them more potent, and also to make them penetrate tissues more easily, and to cross the blood-brain barrier more easily. Okay, well, yeah, fantastic, but that also means that the toxins in these drugs are going to be more potent and are going to, get into your tissues and into your brain, right, more readily. And so if you have a negative reaction, if you have a bad reaction to a fluoroquinolone, basically it just makes it so that you have systemic poisoning, right? Like it goes everywhere. It goes into your tissues, it goes into your brain, it goes everywhere. And I think that that's a commonly experienced problem with fluoroquinolones, right? Is that's part of like the tendon damage, the connective tissue damage, the neurological problems, the central nervous system problems, all of this stuff. It's like, what, an antibiotic is causing this? Well, one of the reasons is, and I'm not saying it's the only reason, but I'm saying one of the reasons is that they're fluorine-infused drugs, and they're designed to go systemic, right? And to really latch on in your body. Okay, so I'm not gonna read off the whole list of fluorine-infused pharmaceuticals, but I'm just going to. But if anyone's interested, it's at the end of the article that I'll link to. So scroll down to the end of the article, and you'll see the list. But there are just a number of them. So anesthetics, antacids, okay? There are deadly antacids that have been on the market and are still on the market. Just throw that out there. Anti-anxiety medication, antibiotics, antidepressants. And the antidepressants are like the big ones, like Prozac, Paxil, Lexapro, right? So antifungal antibiotics. Okay, so this is important for fluoroquinolone survivors as well, because antifungal antibiotics are often given for candida, right? And candida is one of the problems that a lot of people have after fluoroquinolone poisoning. So you can repoison yourself by taking a prescription antifungal that has fluorine in it, okay? Diflucan, I think that's one of the most popular ones, fluorine infused. Antihistamines, antipolemics, those are cholesterol lowering drugs. Anti-malarial drugs. Antimetabolates, which are chemotherapy drugs. Appetite suppressants. I know a woman, it was the daughter of my journalism school professor who died from taking fen-phen, and that was like a diet drug. So again, fluorine-infused diet drugs are killing people. Fen-phen was taken off the market after it killed zillions of people, which is usually, what has to happen for these complete psychopaths to actually take these things off the market. Arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis drugs, psychotropic drugs, antipsychotics, and also steroids and anti-inflammatory agents, which is really hilarious. Anti-inflammatory agents are actually chock full of an inflammatory, which is fluorine, right? Okay, so and again, okay, so the fluoroquinolones, there's a whole laundry list of name brands, but the most common ones are usually Cipro, Avalox, Levaquin, which has quietly been taken off the market, Floxin, Noroxin. There's a whole list of them you can go through, and there's also generics. Now, one thing that I'm also going to mention is that Trovan is one of these fluorine-infused antibiotics, and it is produced by Pfizer, criminal Pfizer Corporation. And Pfizer used Trovan in an experimental and unapproved trial on children in Nigeria in 1996. It did an unapproved trial on 200 kids that had meningitis. 11 kids died due to the Trovan, and many more were left disabled due to the Trovan. So the criminal activity, you know, as we know, Big Pharma is probably the biggest, you know, committer of crimes against humanity on this planet. Okay, so I hope you guys are holding in, because I know this is a bit of an intense information. Okay, so yeah, so basically the idea is that in the same way that not everyone will have an immediate bad reaction to a fluorine-infused drug, not everyone will have an immediate bad reaction to fluoride in the water, okay? But people like me are canaries in the coal mine. So the people like me who will immediately be detrimentally affected by fluoride in the water, right? I'm drawing attention to the things that are slow motion poisoning people, so slow drip poisoning people over a longer period of time. The other problem with these invisible forms of poisoning is that health ailments that do pop up aren't usually tied back to water quality, the types of pharmaceuticals you've been exposed to, you know, definitely you're never tied to your diet, right, etc. There's also fluoride and fluorine sources through diet. So the problem is that, so again, I'm the canary in the coal mine to show people the toxicity level of the water. I'm here to tell you that tap water is already far too toxic and people shouldn't even be drinking the tap water as is. But adding fluoride to the water, I mean, it's just exponentially more toxic, right? And so again, I would be immediately debilitated by fluoride in the water, by exposing myself to tap water. And other people may be fine for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years before the toxic effects build up in the body and the body reaches its threshold point where it just can't handle it anymore and the body starts to break down, okay? So it would behoove people to actually listen to people like me right now and get on this right now, because I'm telling you that putting fluoride in the water is a criminal act, okay? These people are, if this is not, this should be legally criminal without a doubt, but they are without a doubt moral criminals putting this toxin in the water. Again, even knowing that they're going to poison one person, I am one person that will without a doubt be poisoned by fluoride in the water, even with filtration, even with the best filtration commercially available. Okay, well, what happens to all the people who can't afford all these expensive filters? Because these filters are freaking expensive, okay? And you have to replace them regularly. If you have a family of 4, you would have to replace the Berkey filter, the fluoride filters, in less than a year, every year. So probably like 9 months, every 9 months, every 6 to 9 months, you have to shell out a couple $100s to get new filters, okay? The thing is that there's a ton of low-income people in both Regina and Calgary who cannot afford this. They cannot afford to even buy water, okay, that would have partial removal, right? Then there are also the people who are just going to be completely ignorant about this issue. Because this has been snuck by very quietly, now we're in the process of making some noise, right, about this, making some sustained noise about this. But because this was snuck by kind of like under the radar when everyone else was distracted and distressed and traumatized and like fighting against these mandates, right? There are so many people who are just completely ignorant on the issue. So they're not even going to know that they're being poisoned through the water until it's too late, right? Then there are the people, of course, who have been somehow deluded into believing that fluoride in the water is safe, that regular fluoride ingestion is safe, and also a good thing, okay? People are saying that this is a good thing. I can't even believe this level of brainwashing, but there's a book that actually kind of lays this out, and it's called The Fluoride Deception, and it's by a man named Christopher Bryson, and I linked to this book in the article that I wrote. I also linked to just like studies and, you know, information and all this stuff, right? There are literally hundreds of studies showing health harm from fluoride exposure, even at very minor levels, right? Again, I will be harmed by even trace amounts of fluoride, and so I know that if I'm being harmed by trace amounts of fluoride, other people are too, okay? chemical sensitivities are pretty well chronic at this point, right? And so anyone, I'm just going to straight out say, anyone who has chemical sensitivities should not be drinking the water in Regina or Calgary, Regina, Saskatchewan or Calgary, Alberta, in Regina as of 2025, in Calgary as of earlier, okay? I don't know if people with severe chemical sensitivities should even be living in these cities, which is really, you know, this is just a huge black mark on these cities, for anyone who is actually aware, for anyone who actually knows what's going on, right? The people, again, we have known the toxicity of fluoride for decades and decades and decades, like heading to a century at this point. We've had decades of diligent activists just doing painstaking, frustrating, draining work for like over decades, okay? And that's another thing about Pisces, is that it's about the invisible connections that we have, the spiritual connections we have to people through time, space, and location, who are fighting the same fights we're fighting, who are aware of the same things that we're aware of. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm fighting fluoride now in 2022 in my city, but I'm building on the work, the painstaking work of activists throughout the decades. And one woman's website that I came across in Calgary was really touching. It's this website made by a woman named Elke Babiak. And I just want to say thank you to Elke and to all the people who have fought fluoride, even when it was like a horribly thankless and just draining and, you know, enervating job, right? Which I think it pretty much always is. But I just want to read this from Elke's website, because Elke fought fluoridation for over 10 years, okay? Only to have this bullshit pushed by in fall of 2021, right? That undid all of her, you know, well, hasn't undone her work, absolutely not. But basically, you know, we just have these delusional people in positions of power that just keep bringing this forward. They keep trying to force it on us and trying to force it on us, trying to force it on us. And it's exhausting. It is exhausting to fend all this stuff off. It's exhausting to fight every level of poisoning that they're trying to bring down on us, you know, at one time. But this is from Elke's website from Calgary. Okay. About me. I was actively involved to end fluoridation in Calgary from the end of 1988 to about 1999, and then briefly again in 2011, before Calgary councillors voted to stop fluoridation. I was a desktop publishing editor from 1998 to 2002 for Fluoride, the journal of the International Society for Fluoride Research. I am officially retired as an activist and working in my new career as a real estate agent. For those of you just getting started to end fluoridation, may your path be easier than mine was. With heartfelt best wishes and blessings for your journey, respectfully, Elke. Okay, well, Elke, I don't think it's going to be any easier, girl, but thank you for putting in that foundational work. That was so important. So what happened in Calgary was they were fluoridating the water for decades, I believe. And then finally, in 2011, public pressure was so great, and they must have had some living, breathing human beings on city council, I don't know. But basically, they decided to remove fluoride from Calgary's water in 2011. Now, again, in 2021, they're voting to put it back in, okay? So they had a decade reprieve. Now, the interesting thing is that, unbeknownst to me, when I was in my 20s, I was living in Calgary. I lived in Calgary for 6 years, and I was unknowingly drinking fluoridated water that entire time. Okay, so I lived in Calgary from 2004 to 2010, and I knew that fluoride was poisonous back then, right? But I was not on top of these issues in my 20s to the degree that I am today. And so it just, it just wasn't, I had other things to worry about, other concerns, and it just slipped by my radar. But I was drinking fluoridated water from 2004 to 2010, and I will say that I was having health issues in Calgary pretty much throughout that entire time. I was having really bad fatigue, tingling issues, just feeling, just not feeling well at all. And you know, now looking back, I think, well, this was the beginning of fluoride toxicity for me, right? So the thing about that, okay, so yeah, so 2004 to 2010, I was drinking, well, actually, the end of 2009, I was drinking the fluoridated water. Then I switched to reverse osmosis. But in December 2009, I got poisoned by 3 pills of Cipro. So a fluorine-infused pharmaceutical that was slipped by me, right, without warning. Never should have been prescribed that drug for as minor of an issue as I had. So it was kind of like the 1-2 punch, right? The fluoride was building up in my system for almost 6 years, and then I get nailed by the Cipro, and that just takes me out. Full on took me out. So this is, you know, kind of putting some pieces together for me, like, oh my goodness, I was basically being poisoned through the water the entire time I was there. Okay. Okay, so I want to end off this video. I'm going to actually read the letter that I have sent to every member of Regina City Council. I have posted this online. I've posted this, so I posted this through social media. I posted this in my article. Okay, so this is just this is some of the information that Regina City Council is ignoring as they steamroll forward, attempt to steamroll forward. We're gonna reverse this, or I'm gonna move out of this city. So it's, you know, we're we're at that point, right? I've got nothing to lose, so I'm gonna fight it. So I just want to put this on the record that this is the information that Regina City Council is ignoring. I also want to put on the record that Regina City Council there was a big elaborate presentation put on by one of our fluoride-free Regina allies, compadres, and she is a working mother, doesn't have a lot of time, but she set aside time because she knew how important this was, and she created a whole presentation on the toxicity and dangers of fluoride. She even got an expert from the US to testify to Regina City Council. And it was like in one ear and out the other. It's the same response you get when you try to bring up any concerns about 5G and cell towers and non-ionizing radiation, okay? It's like they get this glazed look on their face. They don't care about a thing that you say, and they just want to usher you out and go ahead with their agenda, right? And so that's what we're coming into with the fluoride agenda. City councilors that do not listen, city councilors that do not represent the real residents of this city. Like I say, there is absolutely no way that more than 90% of Reginans are pro-fluoride, but yet more than 90% of Regina City councilors are pro-fluoride. Insane, okay, insane. So they have ignored hundreds of studies showing damage. They have ignored expert testimony, and they have also ignored my email. My mother also wrote an email to them as a person with health issues who would be detrimentally affected by fluoride in the water. They've ignored it all. So that's why we have to take it to the public now. We have to rouse this in the public. We have to make this such an embarrassment to them, because this is satire. This is absolute satire. The fact that in 2022, 10 out of 11 Regina City councilors are voting to put a product that's been used in rat poison in our water, and they want to tell us that that's perfectly safe to do that, and it's also medically necessary. So they have to force everyone to ingest this poison on a daily basis, to absorb it through their skin, through showering, bathing, swimming, washing dishes, everything. They believe they have the right to do that, which is just mind-boggling. It's satire, okay? It's like evil government satire at this point. Okay, so I am going to read this letter, and I'm sorry if this is boring, but I want this on the record because I want people to know that this is the kind of stuff that Regina City Council is just refusing to acknowledge, okay? I have gotten zero response from any of the 11 city councilors that I contacted about this, and same with my mother. Zero response. Okay, so this was sent in early March 2022. Okay. Dear Regina City Council, I'm writing to you today to ask that City Council reverse the terribly misguided decision voted on 10-1 in August 2021 to add fluoride, a known poison and neurotoxin, to Regina's drinking water by 2025. Thank you to Councillor Mole for your prudence in voting no on fluoridation, the lone no vote. And I will also just add thank you to Councillor Mole's wife for giving him the 411 on fluoride, okay? I am one of the many people you will be harming if you go ahead with this remarkably ill-advised plan. I was injured and permanently debilitated by a fluoroquinolone antibiotic 12 years ago. These antibiotics have killed hundreds of thousands of people and debilitated millions around the world. One of the reasons fluoroquinolones are so toxic is that they are infused with fluorine. This increases their ability to penetrate tissues and to cross the blood-brain barrier. This is also why central nervous system damage is common in fluoroquinolone victims. You can find more information about the dangers of fluorine-infused fluoroquinolone antibiotics here. And then I put a link to this article, Fluoroquinolones, the deadliest antibiotics on the market? Question mark? I would say, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have been left with severe chemical sensitivities and life-threatening allergies, among other issues, and the ingestion/absorption of fluoride in the city's water would be extremely detrimental to my health, even catastrophic or deadly. I have just moved back to Regina and purchased my first home. I will have to leave Regina if this decision is not reversed, as even trace amounts of fluoride will be harmful to me and to any others who have chemical sensitivities. Fluoride is very difficult to remove from water once it has been added. Even the best water filters on the market cannot remove fluoride 100%. Fluoride can also be absorbed through water used for bathing. And this is a quote from an article on fluoroquinolone toxicity. People who are fluoride/fluoroquinolone poisoned become, almost by definition, hypersensitive to extremely small amounts, even trace exposures of fluoride. Abso-freaking-lutely. In most cases, as long as these exposures continue, symptoms will continue. Yes, you will be debilitated by your symptoms because of the water, because the water is toxic. Further, people who are chemically sensitive as a result of exposure to other types of poisons will commonly become hypersensitive also to trace amounts of fluoride, a very effective poison. Okay, so basically, again, like I'm saying, anyone with chemical sensitivities, anyone who has a high chemical toxicity load in their bodies will over a long enough time also become hypersensitive to fluoride in the water. And then I provide a link to the article where I'm getting that information. You must be aware by now that fluoridated toothpaste is enough fluoride to harden teeth. If you are concerned with the state of Reginans' oral health, you could make fluoridated toothpaste, toothbrushes, and fluoridated mouth rinses free to at-risk people, as well as using directed public education campaigns about oral health. You know, like if you must, these are the things you can do, right? You simply have no right to force all Reginans to consume an industrial waste product, a product that is also used as a pesticide to kill rats and mice, every day in their drinking water, to cook with it and bathe in it, under some misguided idea that you are improving public health. You are not improving public health, and the addition of fluoride to Regina's water would actually be hugely detrimental to the health and well-being of many residents, myself included. I'm very surprised that Regina City Council could be ignorant of the hundreds of studies showing harm from fluoride exposure, including neurological damage, lowered IQs in children, arthritis, bone fractures, calcification of the pineal gland, cardiovascular damage, cancer, diabetes, endocrine disruption, gastrointestinal effects, infertility, kidney disease, thyroid dysfunction, and many other problems. If these facts have somehow escaped you up to now, you can find further information here. And then I include 4 links to information that they can readily find, studies they can readily find. I mean, this has all been presented to them and they've chosen to ignore it. That's the situation, okay? Okay, so this, and then I put a block quote from a site with an article called Impact of Fluoride on Neurological Development in Children, because this is huge, right? Okay, quote, in a meta-analysis, researchers from Harvard School of Public Health and China Medical University in Shenyang for the first time combined 27 studies and found strong indications that fluoride may adversely affect cognitive development in children. Based on the findings, the authors say that this risk should not be ignored and that more research on fluoride's impact on the developing brain is warranted. The average loss in IQ was reported as a standardized weighted mean difference of 0.45, which would be approximately equivalent to 7 IQ points for commonly used IQ scores with a standard deviation of 15. Some studies suggested that even slightly increased fluoride exposure could be toxic to the brain. Absolutely it is. Thus, children in high fluoride areas had significantly lower IQ scores than those who lived in low fluoride areas. The children studied were up to 14 years of age, but the investigators speculate that any toxic effect on brain development may have happened earlier, and that the brain may not be fully capable of compensating for the toxicity, right? It's the toxicity load, the chemical load. At a certain point, your body just cannot deal with it, cannot manage it, and that's when damage and ailments occur. Fluorides, okay, and this is a quote from one of the people involved in the study. Fluoride seems to fit in with lead, mercury, and other poisons that cause chemical brain drain, Grandjean says. The effect of each toxicant may seem small, but the combined damage on a population scale can be serious, especially because the brain power of the next generation is crucial to all of us. Yes, indeedly. Okay, so this is back to my own article, or my own letter. At least 95% of the world's countries do not fluoridate their water. In fact, many countries have banned the use of fluoride in water supplies because it is ineffective and toxic. These countries include China, Austria, Belgium, Finland, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, Hungary, and Japan. Okay, all those countries have banned the use of fluoride in water. I'm quite suspicious that this decision was slid by the people of this city during a pandemic when they were distracted and distressed by other issues. In light of the traumatizing and stressed circumstances, I'm sure most Reginans were barely aware that this vote was taking place. Because of the circumstances, excuse me, true public awareness or public consent was impossible, and it was also impossible to achieve an effective opposition to fluoridation before the vote. I have since learned that Reginans voted no on fluoride repeatedly in the past, 4 times. Yet this time around, Regina City Council decided not to give Reginans a vote on the subject at all. And again, as I'm saying, it doesn't matter whether a majority of people think poisoning me is a good idea. It's a crime. It's a crime. Even more suspicious is the fact that Calgary City Council sneakily and near simultaneously voted to add fluoride to the water there in November 2021. This makes me wonder if these city councils are receiving orders from higher up the global chain of command. I find it impossible to believe that fluoridating the water was organically and spontaneously considered such a critical issue by these 2 councils during a pandemic, with millions of dollars being allocated for fluoridation when those dollars are sorely needed elsewhere. I'm writing to you today as one of the many people you will harm if you go ahead with the terribly misguided decision to fluoridate Regina's water. Whatever justification you believe you have for putting this toxin into the city's water, that justification is incorrect. Pro-fluoride members of Regina City Council will be held accountable for the damage done to the people of this city if this decision is not reversed. If any of you are God-fearing people, you must understand that you will be held accountable for putting a known poison and neurotoxin into the water supply. There you go. That pretty well laser straight out, and that is information that has been completely ignored. So this is the situation. These so-called leaders in these so-called positions of authority, purely illegitimate authority at this point, have voted to poison me, but they are not willing to be held accountable to me for this decision. They're not willing to hear any legitimate opposition to this, and they're just shrugging it off, right? Okay, so the other thing that I really want to put on the record here too, and this is for fluoroquinolone victims and fluoroquinolone survivors, is that the topic of fluorine / fluoride is heavily censored in most of the major fluoroquinolone toxicity groups. Okay, and so these are like the Facebook groups and the support groups, basically. Okay, so the admins of these groups, I don't know how they've come to this idea. They believe that the addition of fluorine to these drugs has no toxic effect, and they heavily and kind of viciously censor any mention of fluorine or fluoride being toxic. Mind-boggling. So these are literally victims of fluorine poisoning, okay? And like I'm saying, I'm not saying that this is the only toxic element of a fluoroquinolone or the only toxic element of any pharmaceutical, but it is certainly one toxic element of these drugs, okay? So these are people who have been harmed by fluorine-infused drugs, and they've been brainwashed into thinking the fluorine and the fluorine had no effect, no ill effect. That's not what caused this. That's not the problem. And they are willing to censor people like me who are suggesting, yes, this is an element of the toxicity. So I posted, my mom actually posted one of my articles. It's a compilation article, and I'll put a link in the description. It's a compilation article of the things that have helped me. And I made a passing reference to the fact that Berkey water filter, you can get extra Berkey water filters that will remove fluoride. And they deleted that article for that reason, because they just can't fucking stand, pardon my language, but it's infuriating. They can't stand someone suggesting that the fluorine is part of the toxicity problem. I mean, just mind-blowing. So that's why I don't really participate in any of the fluoroquinolone groups, because I'm not going to be censored. I'm not going to have these misguided people trying to tell me that fluorine has no effect when I absolutely know that it does. Okay? I absolutely know that it does. These people are jerks. Okay, and I just want to end off with a few points. I'll keep this video to 1 hour. A few other points about fluorine-infused drugs, okay, just so that people know. So like I said, there's a whole laundry list of drugs that have fluorine in them. Now, you may or may not react to this, but fluorine is something that can build up in your body over time. Fluoride and fluorine can build up in your body over time, so you might be okay for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you get walloped. This also happens with fluoroquinolone antibiotics. People can take fluoroquinolone antibiotics 3, 4, 5 times with no ill effects, and then all of a sudden on their 6th, 7th, 8th time, they become debilitated from them. So it's not a situation where, oh, I've taken this drug before, so that means it's safe. No, it doesn't, okay? Because there have been many people who have learned the hard way that that's not true. Fluorine-infused drugs are also used in veterinary care, okay? So people need to understand that they are poisoning animals with fluorine-infused drugs. Now that is fluorine-infused antibiotics, antifungals, all kinds of stuff, okay? Steroids, huge. For some unknown reason, the medical establishment prescribes a ridiculous amount of steroids when you have some type of an infection. And I mean that if you're sensitive to those steroids, they can just this just happened to my sister's cat, so I know that this happens. It can completely devastate their system for months afterwards, and this has just happened. So veterinary care, you need to look into the types of drugs that your veterinarian is prescribing, and in particular, like, is this needed, right? Is this the safest option? Because generally what happens is a one-size-fits-all. This goes on, right? The panacea that doesn't actually exist. This goes on in the human medical system and the veterinary care system, where it's like a one-size-fits-all prescription where they are basically beating you over the head with a hammer to try to get any type of, to try to eliminate a minor infection, something that could have been treated probably through nutrition and water, or at the very least through a much safer treatment, much safer drug, okay? Yeah, and the other thing is, I just want to give a shout out to this man because he has gone through hell because of a fluorine-infused drug. There's a man named Terrence Young, and he wrote a book about the death of his teenage daughter, Vanessa, who was prescribed Johnson & Johnson's fluorine-infused antacid, Propulsid, and it killed her, okay? And many people have died. So prescription antacid, I mean, that's how insane this is. So you go to the doctor with a minor stomach ailment, minor stomach issue, and again, they're beating you over the head, not only with a hammer, but I would say a sledgehammer, right? They're prescribing you a potentially deadly antacid. Now, Propulsid has actually been taken off the market thank goodness. But there are other ones that are fluorine infused. Again, you have to be so vigilant about what you put in your mouth these days, what you put on your body, in your body, because the people prescribing these just do not know what they're prescribing a lot of the time. I'm just gonna straight up say that, okay? So if they're trying to argue that this is the proper treatment, no, it's not. You can just straight up overrule that, okay? If you're going to the doctor for a minor stomach ailment and they're beating you over the head with a fluorine-infused, potentially deadly, potentially long-term disabling antacid, no, or any drug that they're trying to give you, you have to research it, okay? And don't just take the official narrative, right? Don't just take the mainstream medical journal's word for it, the mainstream medical sites, the mainstream medical, the mainstream media's word for it. Don't take the government's word for it. You have to look beneath the official narrative to see whether there are victims like me out there who are trying to raise the red flag. And I've been trying to raise the red flag for 12 years now on fluoroquinolone, not only on fluoroquinolone antibiotics, but on all of the devastating damage that's being done through the pharmaceutical industry, okay, and through governments green lighting the pharmaceutical industry's crimes against humanity. That's straight up how it is, okay? So I'm not saying there isn't a place for pharmaceuticals. What I'm saying is that pharmaceuticals are dramatically being overprescribed. Terribly dangerous pharmaceuticals are being prescribed for relatively minor infections and problems. So again, the risk of these drugs exponentially outweighs the potential benefit of them, okay? So there are safer drugs out there, and these safer drugs are not being used, okay? So that has to be, everyone has to be aware of that, okay? That you have to take responsibility for your own health and for what you put into your body, unfortunately, because there are many in the medical system, there are many in the government, there are many in the mainstream media who are straight up delusional, brainwashed, or they're just in it for the profit themselves and they just don't care. They just don't care that they're going to disable, debilitate, and kill people with these drugs, okay? You will be denied, you will be dismissed, you will be gaslit. The same thing's going on with the people that have been injured by these shots, okay? The mandated shots. This is a phenomenon that's, the cover-up of adverse reactions and the cover-up of the true dangers of pharmaceuticals and vaccines and other treatments is a chronic thing that has been going on for, over a century now. So absolutely, this has to be on the record that these dangerous drugs are being prescribed every single day for people that don't need them, right? Again, it's way too dangerous to be giving out these drugs. And now in Regina, Saskatchewan and Calgary, Alberta, we have completely either delusional, evil, or combination of the two city councils who are trying to poison our water with fluoride, okay? So we're getting it through the pharmaceuticals and we're also getting it through the water. And then we also have the combination, right? Because the water is awash with pharmaceuticals because of the overprescription of pharmaceuticals. So one of the problems with drinking tap water for someone who is pharmaceutical poisoned, like me, is that you keep being dosed by pharmaceuticals in the water supply, okay? And that's one of the things that Berkey water filters filter out, different water filtration systems will filter out. They'll filter out the pharmaceuticals. But you see how these things are coming together, right? You see how this fluoride poisoning is coming together, and you also see how, the poisoning, the pharmaceutical poisoning of the water is an additional issue. Okay, so anyway, wish me luck, you guys. If anybody is in Calgary or Regina right now, please, please, please get involved actively with this fight to reverse these ass-headed decisions that have just been made, criminal decisions that have just been made. There's still time. It's never too late. I'm so sick of this idea, this like fatalistic idea, like, oh, it's too late. They've already voted on it. It's never too late. It's never too late to reverse a crime in progress. It's never too late to stop a crime in progress, okay? And that's what we're doing, is we're attempting to stop a crime in progress. And we're attempting to educate as many people as possible about the harm that will happen if we're not successful, right? So wish me luck. I am, again, like I said, mind boggled and in shock that we have such misguided leaders, such misguided leadership. I just wonder where this push towards fluoridation is even coming from. I would love to dig up some info on that. But basically, it can't stand. It cannot stand. So listen to Squeaker, the fluoride-hating rat. I think he's going to be our new mascot in Regina, in the fluoride-free Regina, the fight against Regina. And just say no to fluoride, kids. It's poisonous, it is toxic, it is a neurotoxin, and it is straight up bad news.